Good morning, everybody. My name is Jared O'Leary. I've been drumming since 1998. I still got plenty to work on in these practice streams. I like to share what I'm working on, how I'm trying to practice and improve. Today, I'm going to be working on 3 strokes using an exercise called Chug with 3s and fast 3s. Now, all these practice streams have timestamps in the description to show what I was practicing or what kind of question I was answering. If you want to check those out live, you can. There's over 400 of them. Now, because I've been drumming for so long and because I've taught every single grade, kindergarten through doctoral student, I often get some questions in the different chats that I have up on my monitors over here. And I've edited a lot of those down and put them into over 100 videos with drumming tips totaling over 14 hours to help you improve your drumming or your teaching. Now, the first thing that I talk about is the title, How to Fix Traditional Grip Slicing. And then if it says, and other drumming tips, that means there are more different types of topics in there that might be of more interest to you if you are interested in doing that. Now, you can find this playlist and thousands of free exercises on my home tab of YouTube. If you scroll down on the home tab, we've got chop exercises. We've got over 1,000 grid variations. You have to click on the header to show all of the different playlists for all the different grid variations. We've got limb independent stuff, which I was practicing yesterday. We've got just under 500 marching bass stuff, some drumline cadences, just under 400 technique exercises. Again, this one you have to click to show all of the different exercises. We'll be working out of this one, 3 and 4 strokes playlist. And then here's where you can find the 14 hours of drumming tips, the scripted drumming lessons. I'm making more of those each week, as well as the 400 plus live streams if you want to see me practice and have myself. Now, I need motivation with the great sage, Shia LaBeouf. Shia is going to, I can't speak today. Shia is going to help me out to be able to improve my drumming. So I'm going to hide him because of copyright. He's here in spirit. Don't you worry about that. Do it. Just do it. Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday, you said tomorrow. So just do it. Make your dreams come true. Just do it. Some people dream success. Well, you're going to wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit. And you're not going to stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it. Just do it. Yes, you can. Just do it. If you're tired of starting over, stop giving up. Oh, yeah, Shia LaBeouf, I am tired of starting over. One more flex for good luck. All right. We're now at the top of my... We're at the top of my website, which is linked up here from the vertical. It's the very first link in like all the play-alongs. JaredO'Leary.com/drum. This is where we've got all the chop exercises, the grid variations, the limb independence, marching bass, scores, technique, exercise, or the lessons, tips, etc. And then some goofy ones. This one comes out tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. It's organized neater than I can do on YouTube. So if you prefer, check this out. But I'm going to warm up with RCC's MORRISpree. We were playing this the other day. And no, that's not the resolution we want. Enhanced bitrate. Ooh. All right, so in all these thousands of play-alongs, you can just go into the timestamps in the description and say, hey, I want to play this at, I don't know, 100 BPM. Cool. And then it'll count you off. And then you hit drum. And then you make $1 million. Wow. That's what happens when you're a drummer. What happened? Where'd it go? Why did it disappear? YouTube. Okay. Technical difficulties. Today's a great day to get better. Agreed. Welcome, David. Okay, let's try this again. We're going to warm up, we're going to stretch and massage, and then we're going to try and improve 3 strokes. As long as YouTube behaves. Here we go. Faster. We're just going to go up like a few clicks at a time. And then we're just getting the blood flowing since, I haven't drummed at all today. And then we'll stretch and massage. And then we're going to do chug. That version. Did you hear that baby bird fly over while I was drumming? That was weird. Especially since I'm indoors. Might have a window open. Yeah, something about this. Huh. Like, so with traditional grip, you'd obviously like do that, but it just feels weird. I don't know why. What speed was that? 7,000? Cool. Oh, 110? For some reason, I thought it was 105. Let's go to 120. Maybe just for fun, we'll try 130. And then we'll stretch and massage. Do the stretch and massage after you've warmed up like a little bit. You don't have to play super long or super fast. Let's get the blood flowing. Brain, wake up. You can do it. Do it! Yes, you can. Hey. Yeah, so the ending there, I mess up the timing right here on these like eighth notes to the left, so the pa-da-da. And then I try to overcompensate to get back in time right here, and I course corrected the wrong way. So it was like a pendulum of attempting to stay in time. Did not work out. All right, cool. Speaking of did not work out, let's do 130. And then we'll stretch and massage. This will probably be too fast for me because I'm still like reading through this one. Don't have it memorized. We'll find out. That's flawless. Let's try it again. Wow, it's one of those mornings. I am not awake. Today's not a coffee day. Trying to alternate each day. I think I need some. Yeah, I added in an extra note, and then it had me displaced, but I was able to get back in time at the end. Cool. We fixed it. and it was a flawless performance. Okay, let's stretch and massage. So the first one I'm doing is stretching the sides of my forearms. Now, the reason why I do like coffee every other day is because I guess there's some research on it that's shown that it helps decrease like caffeine dependency. And so do like basically a half a cup of coffee and do that every other day. So that way you're not having to like wake up and be dependent on it. And then apparently if you also wait like 90 minutes after you wake up, then you don't have that reliance to need it all the time. But some days if like my sleep just gets like slightly off, I'm stretching the underside of the forearm, by the way. And then I just feel like I need something to wake up, and I try and resist it. So if you're somebody who like drinks a lot of coffee or caffeinated stuff, whatever it is, ocha, like green tea, or hopefully not energy drinks, try like doing every other day and see how that goes. Decrease that dependency. Like I do know some people who like have a few cups a day, and like their last one is like in the afternoon, and it's like, well, no wonder you find it difficult to fall asleep. And it's not like a judgment, it's just like a thinking about just how bodies respond to the nutrients that we provide for it. So my voice just cracks. I'm going through puberty. I'm almost 40, but you know, it happens. But yeah, it's like I fall asleep usually within like 5 minutes of putting my head on the pillow. Maybe that's a bad thing, but it's nice that I'm not laying there with my body still processing the caffeine and whatnot at night. It's more like, all right, and it's sleep mode, activate, shutting down. Pew! It's great. Ooh, little pop for you. Or would you call that a soda or a Coke? We're talking to some friends about that last weekend. They're from the Midwest, so it was like funny how we all have like different words to mean the same thing, different regional meanings. All right, so this was just a quick stretch routine, and then now I'm going to do a massage routine. So the whole point of this is just to get your hands like nice and relaxed, get everything going. Whatever you play for your warm-up, it doesn't need to be something complicated. You don't need to play fast. You're literally just trying to get the blood into your arms, and it just takes a few minutes of playing. I was intentionally just like going back to the RCC's MORRISpree because I was reviewing that the other day. Was it 4 days ago? Something like that. Something. But if you want like a better view of these stretches and like quick explanations of like how and why I'm doing that, there is a video. The video is on my home tab of YouTube. So if you go here, this is where you can find like the RCC's MORRISpree. So on here's the chop stuff. That's where you can find it. But if you scroll all the way down to the tips and lessons section, inside of the drumming lessons playlist, there's a video that is this hand routine saved my drumming. That's the one that shows you like what I'm doing and why I'm doing that. You can't seem to develop the control to let the sticks rebound on the fast fours. Let's see. I've got a video for that, actually. I'm gonna look. Let's see. Yeah, this one. So, all right. So if we go back here on my home tab, if you scroll down under the drumming tips, there's number 92, how to improve the second note of a diddle. Inside of here, mute it so we don't have two Jareds, one of which is screaming. There's a section in here called isolated four-stroke exercise. And so in here, in this one, I like demonstrate it, and then I'm pretty sure I talk about it as well. Yeah. So this exercise is a great way to work on your fours. So is the chug with threes and fast fours that I demonstrate in here. So if you want to see an explanation of that, Drumming Tips 92 is where you can find that. And then the exercise is actually in the technique section. So if you scroll down, and go into here, there's a playlist in here that is 3s and 4-stroke exercises. And so inside of here, there are, scroll down a little bit, multiple different exercises that work on your 4s. The isolated 4s is the one that I demonstrate in drumming tip 92. There's also one with a release, but the exercise, what it's doing is having you play alternating. And then you play it all on the right hand. But the next line is you're doing it as a double stop. So, whoa, my mouse is flying everywhere. So the idea is to make it so that your hands don't sound like, have one being slower than the other or higher than the other. But whether you're doing 3s or 4s, so there's a 3 version of this, even a double stroke version of this. But the double stops allow you to hear whether or not they're consistent. But then there's the left, off the left, and then both, and then you do it like this. Okay, so this is a great exercise for working on it. But there's 2 main approaches for doing, whether it's like a 3-stroke, so if you're like, or 4s. One is to stroke each one of those, like you're playing stick controls, like, and you're literally wristing all 4 of the notes. And the other version is you're doing a single stroke with a controlled rebound to get 4 notes. So you're basically stopping the rebound on whatever note you want to stop on. So in this instance, it's 3s or 4s or more. However many you want to get in there, you're doing a single stroke down and then just stopping the rebound on it. So this exercise is a great way to work on it, and I talk about it more in drumming tip 92. That like walks you through it. So hopefully that helps. But if you spend like the next week or so just like working on either this version or there's another version with the release, so it's the exact same idea, but it puts a release on here, so you have or triplets. So it's not just completely isolated. So either one of those versions would be good to work on. And then there's a couple more variations of exercises in here that would be like fun to work on for your 4 strokes. Like, where is it at? This one, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4. So this exercise is basically getting you used to playing downstrokes here. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And then you're just controlling how many notes you put for each one of those single strokes. So in this case, 2s, and then 3s, and then 4s. And it has you shift between them, so you're getting used to controlling the amount of space between each one of your hands, or each one of the like rhythms that you're trying to go for. And so you're opening up the space for more, closing off the space for some other ones of the rhythms. So this is going to be a little bit different in terms of how open or closed it is compared to the 4 strokes when you're doing the 2s and the 4s. So this is another good exercise that you could do to work on that. But after you've spent some time on that, then like come back, David, and either in like a live stream like this or in any of the videos, you can just leave a comment and like ask some more questions, like with more details of like what specifically on these exercises are difficult or you're not getting. Like, is it the 4th note is like not getting the amount of like volume that you want out of it, or is it like your left hand is like different than your right hand? Like, come back with some more questions, but this should get you started with some things to work on. But the one that I'm going to work on today, where's it at? Chug with, where is it? Chug with 3s and fast 3s, this one. So this one, it's just taking the chug pattern, which is normally... Okay, so that's your very basic chug, but then you can put all sorts of wacky stuff like cheese cha-cha-cha and cheese inverse. So etc. Okay, so this version is it's keeping the accent patterns, but now you're going. So it's switching between controlled 3 strokes and rebound 3 strokes. So I'm actually stroking the first 6 notes. I'm wristing those, and then you're just letting it happen with a single stroke for those 3. So this is a weird, like, constant change back and forth between wrist and a controlled rebound stroke. At least the way that I'm playing this. There's many ways to play, but this is what I'm working on. So let's go into the timestamps of the description, and let's hit drum. Ugh. I don't know. How's 90 gonna feel? I don't actually know how fast this is gonna sound for the way that I want to play this today. I could risk those, like, but I'm trying to just do a single stroke. But this is a great way to work on your 3s. Oh, I should clarify something too. So when you're doing this is going to be like a decrescendo. So the way that I'm playing, I'm not doing a strict accent tap where it's like a 9 and then at 3 for each one of the notes. Like, I'm just thinking of it as like a single stroke, let it decrescendo. I like it. It's fun. My left hand feels a little weird. You joke, but like drummers, we do have a lot of weird ways of saying it. Like this would be like chugga chugga cha cha chugga chugga cha 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 da 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 cha da da da. Like there's a ton of like weird ways to describe it. Good morning, Brendan. Left hand's a little off on the timing. Yeah, specifically on the fast 3s. And again, switching from 3 strokes to a single stroke with controlled rebound. Oh, this is relaxing for you? Interesting. Yeah. So I also have autism. And for me, like, this is kind of like a form of stemming, practicing is. And it's like super relaxing for me to drum. So it is like, I've been doing it since 1998, so almost 30 years now. And it's like a form of meditation for me to actually practice. I don't care about performing. Like, performing is just kind of okay. But the practicing is like literally therapeutic. It just like lowers my anxiety, helps me relax. Not just because of like hearing the repetitive motion, but also just like feeling it, and the refinement process it's nice. So if you haven't tried drumming before, it could totally be like a special interest that's worth like looking into. Like, it is such a good thing for me, like mentally, just to focus on that. Because I don't know about for you, but like I have a tendency to ruminate on things. I'll just get like, it just goes and repeats like negative thoughts about like what's happening in the world, or like what somebody said or whatever. And instead of like doing that, if I instead shift to practicing and like thinking of like different sticking patterns and different ways to practice, then it just like can shift my attention away from that negativity and move it more towards something more productive. And so I've made like a career out of being able to drum and teach, etc. So it's great. Good morning, sports. How you doing? Sorry, gotta stay hydrated. Did you change your name? I don't remember that name. A Dr. Deathwish. Yes, I do remember Dr. Death. How are you doing? From the Fortnite days, back in the day. But yeah, drumming can be a total ASMR experience. Day one? Yeah, now we have 1 billion people following. Hey, I appreciate you stopping in. Hope you have a good day. Here we go. This is a really comfortable tempo. I like it. Late. I say it's comfortable, and then my hands are like, oh yeah? It usually happens like, oh yeah, this feels great, and then my hands are like, ah. This one. Curious how fast we'll get it this morning. Yeah, a little off on the rhythms there. Okay, so this is 1:15. How much longer is it to get to there? So it's an hour and 6 minutes in. And okay, so like basically 10 minutes. Cool. So we'll try and get all the way to 160 this morning in the next 10 minutes. Stay tuned. By the time we get through this, 3 should feel mwah. Trying to match my left and my right a little bit better. I guess, David, to add on what I was thinking about earlier, there's a third way to technically play 4 strokes and 3 strokes, and that's to use like your fingers. But I rarely mention that because there's an assumption made by a lot of like younger drummers, like that's how you're supposed to play, like really fast 3s and 4s, even with like fast diddles. And it's like, well, no, like the reason why they're pumping is because they're not using their fingers. They like literally can't like move their wrist because their fingers are so tight while they're doing this. Like, so like a fast roll, they're not using fingers for that. Same thing for 3 strokes. So there's technically a third way. Instead of wristing it or a single stroke with a controlled rebound, you could use fingers, but not at the faster speeds. It's going to sound too inconsistent if you try and use that. And it's less energy efficient. Good morning, Tyler. Hey, didn't block it. Look at that. You see so much finger? Yeah, so Roy, my guess is you're probably seeing a lot of drum kit people talking about finger. And it's not that there's like a right or wrong. It's just like for what context and on what instrument are you playing on? So for rudimental, because my background's in like marching snare, the fingers, it's more mechanically complex than using a single wrist stroke, which is using basically like 1 primary motion as opposed to like 3 motions if you're doing this. So like if I'm playing with this motion as opposed to with this motion, I just have to worry about moving 1 thing. This is overly simplifying it, but with 3s, you have more inconsistencies in here with your 3 fingers using different stuff. And I even some people use like finger with a 4th finger, or sometimes even the thumb. So you could technically add in 5 if you want to get extra crazy. But when they're doing it, yeah, like on blast beats, yeah, you can do that. It gives you an inconsistency with it. So it's risky from a consistency standpoint. But when you're the only percussionist playing, and it sounds great, but then you get like 8 of me all doing the exact same thing. And that's not going to sound great when I'm doing fast singles with my fingers and whatnot. But also, there's another issue with why I don't like finger approach. Is because when you're doing this, you can basically only play 1 height. So you can play a fast this, but now try playing just this pattern. Just that. With fingers. Good luck. Like, it's really difficult to use fingers to have it changing the amount of space that you're playing in here when you're trying to play quickly. So yes, there are a lot of people who play that way on drum kit, but when it comes to on rudimental, like I'm not playing 3 strokes with my fingers. And that gives me a more consistent sound than if I try and use each one of those fingers. And I can get it in there because I can get the rebound out of it. But then also if you're trying to do like 3 strokes with fingers on like a floor tom where there's less rebound, if you don't have that wrist speed, it's going to be very difficult when there's no rebound to come back up to get that extra like third note in there. So yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to be careful with my words because I'm trying to not be disrespectful. But there's levels of complexity in musicianship. And when I'm saying musicianship, I'm not talking about speed of like technique and playing and whatnot. I'm talking about like making it sound in a way that is intentional with the different timbres and textures that you'll play with the different, like, are you going to play accent taps? Are you going to have agogic accents, which are like a slight emphasis on something? So if I play, this is a slight emphasis to make it a 3 feel, as opposed to like going like this. It's not a strict accent tap like this, but a lot of beginner and intermediate players just focus on like, I'm going to play all at one height and I'm going to play it really fast, or I'm going to play all at one height and I'm going to play in a different meter because that's going to make me better than other people, air quotes, better than other people. But there's like, when you listen to people like Steve Gadd, like OG drummers who've been drumming for a long time, they don't need to rely on a gimmick to sound good. They experiment with the different timbres, textures, agogic accents or full-on accents, etc. They're not just sitting there and like, I'm gonna play like this for like an entire song with Chick Corea. Like, cool, you can do one thing really fast, but is that gonna line up with what the other instruments are playing? For metal, yeah, maybe, but for like other styles of music, probably not. But then there's people like 2 from Sleep Token. When you listen to 2 play the drums, it's very musical. It's like 2 can play blast beats and whatnot. There are moments for that, but then the rest of it is like we're experimenting with different sounds and different like volumes, etc. There's like so many cool things that can be done that's outside of the I'm just going to use finger technique to play really fast. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It's just a different way of playing, a different expectation from the audience, and then like the cohort of drummers who also play within that style. But there are people who are stepping outside of that and are looking at like other styles of music and going, well, what if we had actually made it more musically interesting rather than just fast, if that makes sense. My mindset is use finger only if it's the only way to achieve the musical responsibility. You work your way down the muscle groups using the biggest group. Yeah, that's a fantastic way of describing that, Tyler. Much better than my rant. So I feel the same way. When I'm doing these like instructional things, or like back when I used to teach privately and when I used to teach like a drumlines and whatnot, I would basically only mention wrist as the way to play. This is what you're doing. But then when we get to like a certain speed where it's like, okay, we've maxed out our wrist speed. Now we need that little extra boost in there. And then I'll talk a little bit about how you can use the fingers to like speed up the paradiddles or whatever it is that you're trying to do. But it's like the 1% scenario. So I just tend to not focus on that, because if I were to teach students who are new and I'd say, well, when you get really fast, you're going to start using some fingers, then they're going to start implementing that at a tempo that they don't need it at. So they might like, maybe if it's like 160 beats a minute, they need to be able to like implement a little bit of like fingers to play fast paradiddles or whatever it's going to be. But if you tell them that when they're practicing at like 80, they're going to start focusing on the fingers. And so they're going to focus on the wrong thing that is going to be used 1% of the time, as opposed to the 99% of the time where it's actually going to give them the biggest bang in their buck if they sit there and like work on that technique that you use for like everything except for that super rare scenario. Like I've mentioned this before, but like I never worked on finger motions with traditional grip and whatnot, and was still able to play all the snare breaks, etc. that I needed to with wrist rotation and with a controlled rebound. With those two things alone, I could play whatever I wanted. But there are many like drum kit players who do use finger motion, and it gives them a thinner, weaker sound that might sound fine on drum kit when you're the only person playing it. The inconsistency is not going to be heard. But when I was marching with like several other people, I can't do that technique. It's not that it's like right or wrong. It's just, you know, the different context for it. So on a snare line, it might sound really dirty. It might be like rolling a D20. Is it going to sound good? No, critical miss. Sounds terrible. But on drum kit, you might be able to get away with that. Try to use wrist for your double and actually pulling a little bit of your finger. Whoops. You like to do the drop catch approach? Yeah, I know some people who do that, but like for me, I try and keep my technique mainly consistent. You will notice on the drum kit streams that I'll switch over to more of a French grip on the ride to keep things even lighter, like on some swung patterns. But in general, I try and maintain that consistency. But Rob Brown, I think he was the person who said this, but the way that he describes it is like it's a gear switch, like in your car. And so being able to switch different techniques, different ways of playing, from like match grip to American to German, or from like a wrist to an arm to like finger or rotary or whatever. Like there's many different ways to play. And on different instruments that you're playing on and in different styles, you might do a gear switch to shift between them. And I think that's a really good way of thinking that. If you're not like into cars or don't know how to do like manual, etc., another way to think of it is it's like you're changing your different weapon to fight a different scenario. So like I'm not going to use a pistol if the person's like 100 meters out. I'd use a sniper rifle. But if they're like 40 meters out, I wouldn't use a sniper rifle or a pistol. I might use an AR. And if they're up close, I'm not going to use a sniper rifle when they're in melee range. I'm going to use that instead. So like using different types of weapons or tools for different scenarios, it's normal. But there's this like dogmatic approach that is often taught either intentionally or unintentionally, where it's like, no, there's only one way to play. And it's like, well, on what instrument and for what style of music and for what type of music you're playing within that style of music. So that expansion of understanding of music is important. And it's one of the reasons why I also recommend not just studying different instruments so you can learn different things. Like there are things I've learned on marimba that I've applied to marching snare drum and vice versa. But then also studying with different people. So while I have studied with several different people who are really good at what they do, and I've learned a lot from them, and then I've learned remotely from hundreds of different drummers, I'm just like one person who's regurgitating the things that I understand and that work for me. But I encourage people to like listen to other like rudimental instructors or drum kit instructors or percussion instructors and like learn from them to hear different approaches and go, yes, I agree with Jared in this scenario, but in other scenarios I disagree, and here's why. Because of A, B, and C. Because I learned this from somebody else who taught me something else, which, you know, that's just normal. You think that the shorts reel format encourage a lack of subtlety that Jared is talking about? Quick points only. I do agree with that. I'm super happy that both YouTube and Instagram switched over to a 3-minute length for the shorts, as opposed to previously where it was 60 seconds. So that has helped me immensely with my edits on like the drumming tip stuff that I do. So like in the drumming tips, if you go back and watch like the really old ones, so like if we go back like to the very beginning, since there's over 100 of them now, like these all had to basically be under 60 seconds or it would like cut me off like mid concept that I was introducing. And then as YouTube expanded and made it so that I could go longer, and then I went even longer on these things. And then I realized, well, wait, I could just share like even if it's a 3-minute excerpt, but then have like a whole, what is this? Almost 15 minutes of talking about whether or not it's worth it to get a doctorate in music. Like the amount of, the length of the content that I can share in the short format, the vertical format, has definitely changed over time as I've gotten better as a content creator. At least I hope I've gotten better. I feel like I have. So yeah, you can actually see like that evolution in there. It has shifted how I create content in these like drumming tips and whatnot. This short's titled like you're doing it all wrong. Yeah, there's a delicate balance between like how literal are you with the titles of things. Like for some of these, like the ones that one of these comes out tomorrow and another one comes out in like a week or so, but like this AI know how to drum, like that is kind of very vague. But then this is a little more on the nose. 2025 DCI finals drumline loss according to AI. That one comes out tomorrow, publicly. But like that's more on the nose. But then for some of the like the drumming lessons ones in here, some of them are how to hold traditional grip. You're gonna get exactly what you think just by clicking on that. But then others are more vague. Like you should hear this when you drum. What is that one talking about? Well, it's talking about like tap resonance, etc. But you wouldn't know that. Like it's not like people are going to search for how to get tap hum while playing the drums. Like, so some of them like experimenting with like different types of titles and thumbnails even to figure it out, what's going to resonate. And I still haven't figured out that. This is something that I'm spending this year really focusing on is like the scripted videos. That's funny. Yeah, Jared's live stream is an anti-short. Agreed. Sorry, I'm reading through the comments. Oh, that's interesting. Thinking. Yeah, many ways to teach. I like it. Yeah, the live streams though, like, it's funny especially when I'm doing the limb independence one, which like drum kit I've spent less than 1% of my time working on that, and when I'm doing that on the vertical live stream usually shares with like people who aren't subscribed, just random people searching through their swiping basically. So when they see me like struggling on a limb independence thing, I imagine they're just like, does this person even know how to hit the drum? No, I don't. What is drum? Hand felt weird that round. Really good at the articulation of the third stroke. Honestly, it might be because I've worked up fours. So because when I'm playing the threes, it's like, oh, this is easy. Ah! Like, stop my stick. Yeah, my right hand feels weird. I apologize for making it come across that way. That's not how I intended that. Yes, it's just easy for me. I'm built differently. out of context, Jared sounds really arrogant. That's like so against my way of being, my dole. But again, if like somebody's like scrolling on like the vertical and like that's all they see is at like 5 seconds, I just sound like really arrogant. I'm sorry. It's like the people on like the Soulsborne like forums and whatnot where they're like, just get good, bro. Got no skill. I've died like 20 times on this boss. Get good. Okay. I'm just built different. You don't know players that can do the limb independent stuff that I can do? You've been playing drum kit as a hobby for a long time? That's awesome. Yeah, so part of that, Roy, is the way that a lot of drum kit is taught is if we go back to here, so under the drumming tips, there's, which number is it? There we go. How to improve sight reading. So this one, let me mute it. So drumming tips number 79. So at the very start of this video, I have a bunch of method books. These are not all the method books, but a bunch of method books up on my tenor pad. And so I'm talking about like how to improve sight reading. This was for like one of my streams. But a lot of these are like, probably this whole stack is basically like drum kit books. And the vast majority of them are thinking vertically of what are your limbs doing when you stack them on top of each other, rather than thinking musically horizontally, where you are going in phrases. And so what most drum kit instructors teach on like YouTube and even privately that I've seen from the few that I have studied with, a lot of them focus on a beat, like playing a measure or a specific groove and playing it that way. And there's not a right or wrong to that, but what it does is it gets your limbs to think within that box, as opposed to, and let me phrase this differently. When you are thinking within that box, you're then trying to find musical phrases that will match with that will pair with it. As opposed to the limb independence way, where you are creating ostinato patterns, the things that just repeat. So like you might, on the right hand while you're doing this, and then what you end up doing is like something completely different with your left hand that's gonna like line up with like the bassist, or line up with the, I don't know, the trumpeter, whatever kind of instrument that you're playing with. So trying to get your limbs to create something that stays in time, that's the metronome for the rest of the ensemble and yourself, and then you are able to improvise with the limb independence with different melodies, whether you're doing like a short note on the snare drum and a long note on the bass drum, or vice versa, and you can switch around with that. That approach is harder to develop and harder to teach, because you're not teaching like, here's a beat that we can learn today, and I want you to come back, Johnny, next week and be able to play that beat at this specific speed. That's easier to teach, but it has less applicability within an actual like performance context or rehearsal context, where you have to like figure out beats that match different types of music you're playing, as opposed to just going, oh, what's the style we're playing? Cool. Whatever you play, I'll build off of that. I will complement you. And that is the main approach that resonates with me with drum kit. Is I feel like the drummer is there to enhance the music and support everybody else. Supporting with keeping time with the ostinato patterns that keep going like on the ride pattern or whatever you're doing, but also to add in different melodies on top of that ostinato, on top of that interesting sounding metronome that like resonates with and complements and works with the other instruments that are in the ensemble. But most people don't teach that way because it's harder to teach that way. And it's also harder to market books that way. So I mentioned at the start of each one of my like drum kit streams that Don Moyle's book, 50 Ways of Syncopation. Just get it out. So this book, 50 Ways of Syncopation, like this has more content in here. There's 20 charts that you can play 50 different ways at least. You can even add some more on top of that. This book would be way thicker than a lot of these other books that are out there that have beats, but it's harder to teach this. The only people that I see really do it is Don Moyle and then Gary Chester with New Breed 1 and New Breed 2 that like really focus on the limb independence or interdependence. But if you're selling a book though, like if you're selling one of these books, it's a whole lot easier to make it longer if you're just adding in like a new permutation of a different beat. So there's some books in here where it's like, it literally is that. It just keeps permutating it. It just shifts it over a 16th note or an 8th note, like what the bass drum is doing, etc. And that's how they're able to like fill more content, to be able to sell the book more, to be able to get more people to buy it. So it looks like it's longer than it actually is. How to use your fingers for single stroke rolls. What's the best way to develop single strokes? If you go to here, scroll down, there's two things that I'll show you for that particular thing. Underneath the technique exercises here, I'd recommend going into the endurance and speed exercises. Any one of these exercises in here are great for working on your hand speed. And there's timestamps in the description so you can jump to whatever BPM you want. So you could start with something as simple as like 16th note pyramid, very basic exercise. But when you're playing through this one, you're starting with singles, doubles, 4s, 8s, 16s, 32s, and then 64. And just use the timestamps in the description to start slow and then go faster. But in terms of like how mechanically to do that, what I'm actually going to recommend is taking a look at the just underneath the technique section is the tips and lessons. Under the drumming tips, there's over 14 hours of drumming tips in there that like talk about like what I'm looking for with my relaxed technique that I try and go for that will help you to be able to play faster singles, doubles, etc. So there's over 100 videos in here that can help you with that. Sorry, I need to look at the chat there. Imagine a private lesson teacher that tells you it's easy. You just have to be built different. Nobody would ever do this. Actually, you'd be surprised. There was the family-friendly version of this story. I've told this before. Is somebody that I know in a different studio during my undergrad. They went to their private lesson instructor and like played something, and they're like, "You sound like poop. Don't come back and tell you don't sound like poop anymore." And like they had a less like family friendly version of that. It's like, wow, you teach like poop. Don't become a professor until you don't teach like poop. That would be my response. You're very welcome. Yeah, stop by in future streams or leave comments on any of the videos if you have questions about any of these, like the technique exercises and whatnot. But there's over 2,000 on here, so it'll keep you busy for a while. Breaking it down builds it up a limit of time. That's interesting. Yeah, I haven't heard of that one. That book. That is a good way to do it, though. Why hasn't someone written out a book of every single drum beat? I mean, you have a background in like CS and whatnot. You could totally do something like that. Like just literally just create a program that does every permutation of everything, just cycles through it. You could totally do that. But there would be so many in there that just sounds terrible. Oh, I totally agree, Roy. That when the limit independence like locks in, it's just like there's something about it that just tickles my brain in all the right ways that I'm just like, yeah, I love this. Like, it's such a fun experience. Let's see here. I wanna play through this. We'll chop out with the Chug with threes and fast threes. Where's it at? This one. Okay, so we're just playing it at speed. Let's do the last like 10 clicks of this. Technically 11. Your snare drum is awkward and I don't know how to change it. That's funny. How long until the program writes a Neil Peart solo exactly? So there's on my website there's a what is it? /Sonic Pi, I think. It's in the header, but there's with Sonic Pi, there's some Ruby code in there, and I've got it set up so that it'll like improvise fills and stuff on like different drums, and it was really fun to program. But if I were to spend like another week like working on this, you could totally program it to do stuff like that and like add in like, okay, a 1 in 20 chance of like doing 6 tuplets versus 30-second notes, etc. Have it do different fills. There's so many cool things you could do with like programming, but yeah, you could totally do that. What? Oh, it's muted. Felt like I had to wake up for that. Yeah, Roy, I felt that way about so many instructors. Where I've just like, I learned what not to do. My sticks are slipping. Yeah, the bad instructors that I've had have been like a lesson on don't teach like that. You have moments where you tell your students, I'm not sure. You always offer to do research. Yeah, that's the video idea is a great idea. I agree with Roy that you do sound like an excellent teacher. That was something that I did with like the programming students that I work with, because if there was like 30 kids in class, they'd work on like 30 different programs. So they were often working on stuff that like I hadn't tried before. And so they would sometimes come to me with questions and I'd be like, oh, I don't actually know that. Let me do some research. Tomorrow, I'll try and give you an answer that can like help point you in the right direction for like whatever programming language they were working on. And then when I'd show up like the next day, I'd be like, okay, so I researched into what you were trying to do with your game. Here's a solution for it, but here, more importantly, is how I came to that solution. So that way you can learn how to do this on your own if like I was absent, like if there was a sub that day, or if they like graduated, or it's on the weekend and like I wasn't there to just like give them an answer. So I'd walk them through the research that I did to figure out an answer to it. And then they would be able to ideally replicate that on their own so they can learn. You learn the most as a teacher? Agreed. Totally agreed. I have become a much better performer because of the teaching, because you have to think of the same thing many different ways. It just makes you a better performer doing that. And that's kind of a weird concept, but I totally agree. Uh-oh. like too fast on that. Huh. Woo! My hands are dead. All right. If you want to find all the exercises, you could go to the home tab, or if you go to the first link that's at the top of the play alongs, you know, where all the like timestamps are for a BPM. This takes you to here. There's 62 chop exercises. I'm actually working on this week several more chop exercises that'll be scheduled for release, some like more shopping sprees and whatnot, so stay tuned for that. They're going to be fun. There's over 1,000 grid variations, triplet and 16th note, all the limb independent stuff. I'll be practicing that tomorrow. We've got almost 500 marching bass stuff, some drumline cadences, almost 400 technique exercises. Here's where there's 14 hours of drumming tips, over 400 live streams of me practicing and having myself, and then the scripted lessons and whatnot, as well as some goofy videos like AI drumming from the stream that I did, 2 days ago? Sorry, reading through your comment. Yeah. Some instructors that I know are like, their goal was to get it so that their student was better than them. And I agree to an extent, but I also think that's kind of like saying I'm not willing to grow as an instructor. And I don't mean to like put words in their mouth and say that's what you mean when you're making that statement. But for me, that's how I internalize that or interpret it. And so for me, I was just constantly like, okay, well, if a student is getting to a point where I don't know something, then that's highlighting an area of something that I can continue to learn and work on. And I don't have to do that, but like if a student wanted to learn like really advanced marimba stuff that I'm like, I just don't, like, I'll teach you to get into college, but after that, like, I'm not going to teach you the master's level because, like, I don't care to play marimba at that level. There are some things I'm just like, cool, you're now better than me at that. Congratulations, you studied with Nancy Zelsman. I got you there. She took you to the next level. Like, very different. In those moments, I understand and that resonated with me, but in general, I was like, especially with the rudimental, I was like, no, if you're like getting to a point where you can play like a flam drag faster than me, I need to figure out why. What can I do to get better at it? Giving you blast beats of content. I'll give you all the content. There's so many things to play. And I will continue to play them tomorrow. Anyways, I rambled a bunch. Good questions, good discussions. I'm definitely going to turn some of the conversations into some clips that I'll share in the drumming tips in the future. So stay tuned for that. I got so much stuff that I'm working on behind the scenes. I was working, this is a 13-hour day on Friday and Thursday and Wednesday. And then yesterday I was working until like, 5 or something like that. So lots of content to come. Stay tuned. But I appreciate y'all. If you enjoy this content, share it with somebody else. If you don't enjoy this content, then kind of weird to stick around for an hour and 10-minute long stream. But you do you. I hope you have a good day. And I'm going to get ready for the DLC for Rise of the Tomb Raider. That's what we're doing. But anyways, goodbye.